Song Xuan hated the taste of tobacco. He put down his pipe, tossing it carelessly onto the floor, shattering it. Immediately, a servant appeared to collect the broken pieces. Song Xuan no longer needed such things to entertain him. He had something far better now. Muttering about ungratefulness, he descended the stairs and passed through a locked gate, arriving at the hidden dungeon. There, a crumpled figure resembling a man lay sprawled on the cold tiles. Opening the cell, Song Xuan stepped closer, tilting his head in amusement. In a soft, almost tender tone, he spoke to the prisoner. "My dear Shen Wei, you can make this stop any time. Just tell me who helped you escape, and I'll let you rest." These words were hollow, but it amused him to imagine Shen Wei taking the bait. Shen Wei knew better. He understood the emperor's nature. Despite the pain he endured, Shen Wei showed no sign of obedience. Instead, he spat blood at Song Xuan's feet, a bold move for someone in his state. The emperor's face darkened, displeased. He gripped Shen Wei's chin, his gaze cold and harsh. "Is this how you repay my kindness?" Though his voice was soft, it held an unmistakable threat. He released Shen Wei abruptly, savoring the hatred in his prisoner's eyes. It thrilled him. Deciding to leave for a while, Song Xuan turned to a guard. "Teach him a lesson while I'm gone," he ordered, before happily attending to imperial matters. That night, Shen Wei gazed at the limited view of the night sky from his small, chained-up cell window. His body was covered in bruises, yet he never screamed or cried, refusing to give the emperor the satisfaction. By morning, Song Xuan strolled through the palace halls with a patient smile. He wasn't in a rush. His favorite person awaited. Arriving at the secret prison, he stepped in, noting Shen Wei's defiance had not wavered. Song Xuan's gaze lingered over Shen Wei's beaten form, chained to the wall, head barely lifted to meet his eyes. The emperor found this determination strangely appealing. Stubbornness in the face of so much suffering. "I've given you every chance to cooperate, yet you still resist. Why?" Song Xuan's gray eyes sparkled with both curiosity and amusement. What kept Shen Wei going? Shen Wei lifted his head, his dark blue eyes brimming with hatred. He smirked, the satisfaction of seeing the emperor's slight disappointment clear. "If you can't figure it out, go kill yourself." Song Xuan's expression remained impassive. "Such high expectations, yet you offer nothing in return," he remarked coolly. He reached out, brushing Shen Wei's cheek, his fingers trailing down to his neck before gripping tightly. "I wonder what it will take to break you." Shen Wei met his gaze, daring him to follow through. Death seemed like a release, almost a relief. But he knew the emperor wouldn't waste him that easily. Shen Wei was his only true entertainment. Amused by Shen Wei's defiance, Song Xuan chuckled and let go. "You have an interesting sense of humor," he said dryly. "But don't worry, I'm not going to kill you just yet." With that, he left the cell and returned to his study, pouring himself a glass of wine. As he sipped, Song Xuan mused over Shen Wei's words. "If you can't figure it out, go kill yourself." "Interesting," he murmured. "Is he really immune to death threats?" Shen Wei's life was a never-ending nightmare. Born the illegitimate son of a powerful noble, he had been condemned from birth. His father, having had a scandalous affair with a prostitute, left her to raise Shen Wei alone until her demands for hush money ended with her murder. Terrified of discovery, the noble reluctantly took in the child, seeing him only as a burden and treating him with cold contempt. Shen Wei grew up as the black sheep, scorned by siblings and servants alike. Though he was strikingly handsome and displayed remarkable dignity and refinement, none of it mattered. He wasn't legitimate. As the noble's fortunes declined, he spiraled into debt and looked for a way out. His solution? Sell his unwanted child to the emperor as a means to buy time and maybe even favor. Under the silver moon, Shen Wei's dark gaze was fixed on the cold dungeon floor. Emperor Song Xuan observed him, intrigued by Shen Wei's resistance. "Your resilience is impressive," he said, a touch annoyed, "but do you really think it will matter?" Song Xuan leaned down, fingers brushing Shen Wei's bruised face. "Are you hoping for rescue?" he mocked, eyes cold. He hated Shen Wei's silence. Why did Shen Wei never respond? Did he not know that he consumed Song Xuan's every thought? "What's on your mind?" Song Xuan whispered, leaning closer. Shen Wei turned away in disgust, breaking the emperor's hold. The Emperor's gray eyes narrowed with frustration. How could Shen Wei not see he belonged to him? Just then, Song Xuan noticed something odd. Shen Wei was feverish. Despite his defiance, the dark-haired man's face was flushed. The Emperor's fingers pressed against his captive's forehead, and he realized Shen Wei had a high fever. "You're ill, aren't you?" Song Xuan's tone was harsh, hiding the faintest trace of concern. Annoyed at himself, he ordered the guards to treat Shen Wei's fever. Yet, even in weakness, Shen Wei ignored him, clinging to consciousness for one reason. Someone he cared about, someone precious he yearned to see again. The guards roughly forced medicine into Shen Wei, leaving him barely conscious. Later, Song Xuan returned, watching him in the silent cell. Shen Wei stirred awake as cold water splashed over him, the guard's way of mocking him. Wet and bruised, Shen Wei glanced at the sunrise, longing for freedom and the warmth of his beloved Ahuo. When Song Xuan entered again, his expression was unreadable as he approached Shen Wei. "I hope you're feeling better," he said quietly, trailing his fingers along Shen Wei's bruised skin. For a brief moment, Shen Wei's gaze softened as he looked out the window, and his hardened expression gave way to a rare glimpse of peace. Caught off guard, Song Xuan felt a pang of jealousy, though he concealed it. "You seemed, distracted." His voice softened as he leaned close, fingers grazing Shen Wei's face. But the captive turned away, coldly telling him to leave. Song Xuan's frustration simmered, but he forced a mask of indifference as he left, lingering outside the cell door. Within, Shen Wei stood and strained toward the barred window, his mind far from the dark cell. "Ahuo, my love," he murmured, voice tinged with longing. Hearing this, Song Xuan clenched his fists, a sudden wave of jealousy and possessiveness tightening around him. Another name, someone else Shen Wei thought of with such tenderness. Song Xuan's blood boiled. He was not willing to share. Back in his chambers, he scrawled a letter. The Emperor had made a decision. Shen Wei belonged to him, no one else. Song Xuan's eyes sparkled with a mix of amusement and malice as he read through the details of Ahuo. A smirk tugged at the corners of his mouth, his gaze narrowing as his grip on the scroll tightened. Ahuo's full name was Wen Ahuo. She had an ordinary appearance, blonde hair, hazel eyes, tan skin. Coming from a middle-class noble family, she was of a lower status than Shen Wei. Though not striking, her actions spoke volumes. Ahuo had gained a reputation across high society, and was spoken of by both men and women, often with disdain. She managed to capture Shen Wei's attention by carefully crafting an image of innocence and grace. Knowing he preferred elegance, Ahuo wore longer dresses and caked her face in makeup to appear more refined. Her plan worked. Shen Wei enjoyed her company, and eventually fell for her charms. "Her plan succeeded, but she's reckless," Song Xuan muttered, tossing the scroll aside. Despite her act, Ahuo continued to chase men of higher status, seeing Shen Wei as a mere stepping stone. The Emperor's irritation grew. Shen Wei, blinded by Ahuo's deception, failed to see her true nature. Song Xuan could use this to humiliate Shen Wei, but it would only harm his own pride. Turning to a nearby guard, he ordered, "Hire someone to end her." In the following days, Song Xuan refrained from visiting Shen Wei, filling his time with indulgences and distractions, yet his thoughts continuously drifted back to him, haunting his every moment, even with the company of his concubines. One night, a concubine lay beneath him, her cries echoing through the chamber, yet he felt nothing. He pictured blue eyes dark and intense, Shen Wei's eyes so beautiful and alluring. Frustration overwhelmed him, and he abruptly ended their encounter, dismissing the sobbing woman without a second thought. Alone, he poured himself wine and sank onto the bed, his thoughts consumed by Shen Wei. No matter what he did, he couldn't escape the pull, the longing. His heart raced whenever Shen Wei looked at him, even with hatred. It didn't matter, so long as Shen Wei belonged to him. With Ahuo gone, Shen Wei had no reason to leave the Emperor. Late that night, drunk and restless, Song Xuan found himself wandering to the dungeon where Shen Wei slept. He dismissed the guards and entered, taking in the sight of the man sleeping on the cold floor. In the dim moonlight, Shen Wei's pale skin and serene expression were captivating, drawing Song Xuan in. Without thinking, he leaned down and pressed his lips to Shen Wei's, tasting him, craving him. Song Xuan wanted more, his hands roaming over Shen Wei's form as he lingered, unable to stop himself. Yet he abruptly pulled back, realizing his obsession, his hunger. Shen Wei mumbled a name in his sleep. Ahuo. Hearing that name brought jealousy and rage. How could Shen Wei still think of her? Shen Wei, Song Xuan whispered desperately, his voice a soft confession. I love you. For a moment, he imagined what Shen Wei's reaction would be. Surprise, anger, disgust. But he couldn't bear to face it. Song Xuan composed himself, leaving the dungeon, shaken by the depth of his emotions. The next morning, Shen Wei rose early to see the sunrise. Today was Ahuo's birthday, and he cherished the memory of her love for Dawn. She had said it was a new beginning, a chance to leave the past behind. A faint smile crossed his lips as he murmured, Happy birthday, my love. Just then, footsteps echoed, and Song Xuan appeared, his dark robes glinting with golden embroidery. The Emperor's gaze fixed on him, unsettling and triumphant. My dear Shen Wei, Song Xuan said softly, stepping closer. Today is a special day, isn't it? Shen Wei's heart sank, his pulse quickening with dread. He couldn't look away from Song Xuan's smile, each step filling him with a foreboding sense of doom. What have you done? Shen Wei whispered. Song Xuan leaned in, his voice a quiet taunt. I sent her to hell. A thud was heard. Shen Wei saw something roll his way. A head. Her head. The dark-haired man's pupils widened, his breath ragged, and his heart clenched at the sight. With all the exhaustion from the constant physical abuse, he found his vision went blurry and then black. A day passed before Shen Wei finally woke up again, his body frail and weak. Attempting to stand, he was gently pushed back by Emperor Song Xuan, who had been silently watching him sleep. Shen Wei, exhausted from not eating in days, had little strength to resist. You need rest. There's no need to move, Song Xuan said, his gray eyes fixed intently on Shen Wei. How are you feeling? His voice was gentle, his hand resting atop Shen Wei's. Shen Wei narrowed his eyes, pulling his hand away in silence as he looked away, his gaze drifting to the sunrise outside the window. Shen Wei. Song Xuan's voice was anxious. He could feel Shen Wei slipping further from him with every passing moment. He knew who Shen Wei was thinking of, his late love, Ahuo, the one he cherished even now. The thought filled Song Xuan with a burning jealousy. She's still better than me, he muttered to himself, his frustration clear. With a hardened gaze, he told Shen Wei to eat, his words laced with barely concealed anger. Song Xuan then left, ensuring guards stood at the door to prevent Shen Wei from trying anything desperate. Days passed, each one blending into the next. Shen Wei made it his mission to escape this life by any means. First, he tried to jump from the window, only to be restrained by guards. Then he attempted to hang himself, but there was nothing he could use to succeed. Even in the bath, servants monitored him to prevent any chance of drowning, and sharp objects were nowhere to be found. With no other options, he chose to starve himself, slipping closer to death each day. Looking into the mirror, Shen Wei barely recognized the skeletal figure staring back. He was pale, thin, and looked like a ghost, his once vibrant presence now hollow. What am I even doing? He whispered, more to himself than anyone, just to hear his voice again after such prolonged silence. Slowly he staggered back to his bed, each step unsteady. His only desire was to fade away. A knock on the door interrupted his quiet, and Shen Wei didn't need to look to know it was Song Xuan. His tall figure entered, his brown hair falling over stern gray eyes, eyes that Shen Wei had come to despise. I heard you haven't been eating, Song Xuan remarked, sitting beside him and placing a hand over Shen Wei's. He already knew Shen Wei would pull away, yet he still repeated the same gesture each time. Please eat. I don't like seeing you like this. Shen Wei said nothing, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a response. The silence that fell over the room was heavy. I've changed, Shen Wei. I regret the things I've done, Song Xuan said softly, grasping Shen Wei's hands, giving them a gentle squeeze. His tone was breathless, his expression one of desperation. Shen Wei raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Change? No. He didn't want Song Xuan to change. His suffering was the only thing that might eventually free him. Song Xuan, sensing the rejection, wrapped his arms around Shen Wei in a tight embrace. But before he could say more, a servant entered with an urgent message, drawing Song Xuan away. "I'll be in the throne room. Call if anything happens," he said before leaving. Shen Wei was left alone once more, his only company the tempting aroma of food he stubbornly ignored. He had learned to resist, dismissing the servants who brought food with either fear or disgust in their eyes. But today, someone different entered, a young man, unfamiliar with the hostility surrounding Shen Wei. The youth held out the meal with a smile. "Please eat. I made it myself," the boy insisted, a kind warmth in his voice. It reminded Shen Wei of Ah Huo, her light-hearted persistence. After a moment, Shen Wei relented, deciding to eat just this once. Song Xuan's visits had grown more frequent, and if he wanted to avoid that face a bit longer, he could manage a single meal. Just one. Learning about the strange youth was easy. Every day Shen Wei ate with the boy. At first he simply observed, but gradually started small talk. His name was Shu. He didn't share his full name because he had none. An orphan just old enough to work, Shu was kicked out onto the streets and found a job in the imperial palace. He spoke endlessly. "So you have no surname?" Shen Wei asked. The boy eagerly nodded. "Yes." By the end of the meal, Shu had become Shen Shu. The two grew closer as Shen Wei regained his strength, deciding to stick around a bit longer for the lively boy. "Master, you look better than when we first met," Shen Shu said, pouring tea. No wonder the servants were scared. "It's a big change." Shen Wei coughed, feeling self-conscious. "What are you saying? I look the same, don't talk." He waved him off, but Shen Shu persisted. "Really, you look different. You're pretty." Shen Wei flicked Shen Shu's forehead. "No swearing on your life." Shen Shu sighed. "I'm just expressing myself, no need to lecture me." A smile tugged at Shen Wei's lips. Life was more bearable with this boy around. He patted his head. "Go! You can't fool around with me." Just as Shen Shu was about to protest, he remembered his chores and hurried out. Silence returned to Shen Wei's room. He preferred it that way. He moved to the balcony and looked down. No guards in sight. Then the door burst open. Emperor Song Xuan entered, wearing his usual friendly but repulsive smile. "Wei, good morning," he said, his voice cold. Shen Wei didn't respond, staring at the ground. He contemplated jumping when Song Xuan spoke again. "Shen Shu, huh? Does that child interest you so much?" Shen Wei froze, fear gripping him. How did Song Xuan know? The Emperor's satisfied smile deepened. "You only eat when he's around. What's special about him?" "What have you done to him?" Shen Wei demanded, eyes narrowing. "Nothing." "Well, not yet." Shen Wei dashed for the door, intent on saving Shen Shu. He ran through the halls, heading to the throne room where captives were often sent. Inside the lavish room, Song Xuan approached slowly, enjoying Shen Wei's desperation. "I have not done anything. I simply granted Shen Shu's wish." Irritation crept into his voice as he said the name. If I recall, he wanted to be a high-ranking guard. Shen Wei's blood boiled. Yes, Shen Shu had dreamed of that, but he was too young. Song Xuan had sent him to a training camp despite his age. It was like sending Shen Shu to his death. "Where are you dragging me to, boy?" Shen Wei asked as Shen Shu tugged him along, excitement clear on the boy's face. "Just follow me, master. I have something to show you." Since meeting Shen Shu, the 16-year-old servant with an easy smile, Shen Wei, a reserved man of 23, had grown used to his company. Though Shen Wei usually stayed locked away by order of the Emperor, Shen Shu had taken pity on him, risking his own position to sneak him out. Despite himself, Shen Wei couldn't hate the youth for his kindness. They reached the palace garden, bathed in moonlight. Flowers lined the path to a pond, where crimson water lilies floated gracefully, illuminated by fireflies. Shen Wei knelt by the water, feeling a rare sense of peace, his long, dark hair framing his face. Unknown to him, Shen Shu watched him with quiet admiration. "It's pretty," Shen Wei murmured, gazing at the moon's reflection. Shen Shu smiled back. "It is." After a long silence, Shen Shu clenched his fists, looking at Shen Wei. "Master, I want to become a guard," he declared, eyes fierce. Shen Wei raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And why is that?" Shen Shu hesitated, then admitted, "I want to protect someone. If I become strong, I can protect them." Shen Wei chuckled softly. knowing Shen Shu was too young yet for the grueling enlistment. But the young man's determination struck a chord. Later, back in his chamber, Shen Wei found himself face to face with the emperor, Song Xuan, whose obsession kept Shen Wei in confinement. Song Xuan's gaze was hard, his words venomous, as he reminded Shen Wei of his forced loyalty. "Your father gifted you to me. Your life is mine to control," Song Xuan said, his smirk twisting with satisfaction. "I am nothing to you," Shen Wei spat, his voice filled with contempt. "You've taken everything from me, made my life a nightmare. I'd rather be dead than live near you." Song Xuan's eyes darkened. "Nothing?" he repeated, grabbing Shen Wei's collar and dragging him to the window. He held him dangerously over the edge. "You want to die so badly? Then say it." Shen Wei stared back unafraid. "Being with you is worse than death. Seeing your face makes me wish I was blind, hearing your voice deaf. You are poison. I hate you." In response, Song Xuan's grip tightened, his fury barely contained. But Shen Wei did not waver, his words sharp as knives. The hatred between them lingered thickly in the air, unyielding and bitter. "I hate you." These words echoed in Emperor Song Xuan's mind, gnawing at him. He had ruined Shen Wei's family, indebted them, even killed Huo, the one person Shen Wei loved, all to possess him. Song Xuan had convinced himself that his devotion and gifts would make Shen Wei love him back, but the hatred in Shen Wei's eyes shattered that hope. "Liar," Song Xuan whispered, trembling. "You love me." His grip on Shen Wei's collar tightened, his desperation growing as he stared at the man who had become his obsession. Shen Wei's gaze held only disdain. "My heart stopped beating the day you killed Huo. Any affection you hear is just a figment of your twisted mind." "No!" Song Xuan's voice grew frantic, pulling Shen Wei into his arms. "You love me, you have to." His hands roamed possessively, clinging to the illusion he desperately wanted to believe. Shen Wei tried to push him away, but Song Xuan tightened his hold, refusing to let go. Suddenly, Song Xuan's lips were on his, fierce and uninvited. Shen Wei recoiled, his body rigid as the Emperor's invasive touch sent a wave of revulsion through him. With a surge of anger, Shen Wei slapped Song Xuan, his face flushed with both rage and humiliation. "You bastard!" Shen Wei spat, trying to strike again, but Song Xuan caught his wrist. Panting, Song Xuan's gray eyes were wild with obsession. "Shen Wei, I love you. I won't let you go. Ever." A sickening realization dawned on Shen Wei. This man's love was a prison. Desperate for escape, Shen Wei seized a nearby sword, its silver blade engraved with the words, "Blood brings the spring." He brought the blade to his neck, his expression calm. "What are you doing, Shen Wei? No!" Song Xuan's panicked voice reached his ears, but Shen Wei was resolute. With a swift motion, the blade cut through, and he fell, a pool of blood forming beneath him. Song Xuan caught him as he collapsed, staring in horror at the lifeless body in his arms. In his final breath, Shen Wei managed to whisper, "I hate you." The silence that followed was absolute. Shen Wei's heart had stilled, and with it, any remnants of Song Xuan's delusions. Shen Wei felt numbness take over and then, nothing. As he opened his eyes, darkness surrounded him, empty and vast. Suddenly colors began forming around him, evolving from red and blue to yellows, greens, and other hues, finally solidifying into an image of a familiar scene. A tall tangerine tree in a lush field. Flowers bloomed, and birds soared against a clear sky. A beautiful woman leaned against the tree, a serene smile on her lips. "Huo," Shen Wei whispered. The vision of Huo looked alive and well, but this wasn't his memory. Her purple dress and lavish jewels seemed out of place. The necklace around her neck, one he'd gifted her, confirmed it. Shen Wei realized he was seeing a moment from the time he'd been held captive by Song Xuan, when he'd longed to understand how Huo had died. In the vision, Huo was soon joined by a cheerful, richly dressed man. They spoke about politics, the harsh rule of Emperor Song Xuan, and rumors of a hidden concubine. Shen Wei's heart clenched as he realized Huo had always been drawn to someone like this man of charm and power, unlike himself. Listening to Huo confide to the man how she'd never loved Shen Wei, how she'd wanted his wealth, he felt shattered. The vision faded, leaving Shen Wei in a dreadful silence. He found himself in a dimly lit room, staring at his own corpse preserved in a glass coffin surrounded by melting candles. The once mighty Emperor Song Xuan sat nearby, his face gaunt and pale, eyes wet with tears as he murmured, "Wei, please." "I'm waiting." It had been a year since Shen Wei's death, and the empire had suffered. Song Xuan had become a mad tyrant, torturing anyone who mentioned Shen Wei's name. Alone in his grief, he spent his days by the coffin, wishing Shen Wei would return to life. Servants whispered of the emperor's descent into madness, how he would punish those who dared suggest he remarry or move on. Yet nothing could soothe his loneliness. As winter arrived, Song Xuan's obsession deepened. One night, in desperation, he ran to the coffin, believing Shen Wei was only sleeping. He opened the glass, carefully lifting Shen Wei's lifeless body, cradling it as though he could revive him. "Wake up, my love," he whispered. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." His pleas dissolved into silence as the emperor clung to the cold, unyielding body, lost in an endless spiral of regret and insanity. Song Xuan knew he was a bad person. From birth, he was destined for a dark path. As a child, he stole whatever he could to survive and gave everything to his mother. Before he rose to power, life was harsh and simple. He'd been called many things: thief, bastard, trash. He was used to it. One memory stuck with him. When he was 8, he was only called Xuan. Without a proper last name, he followed his mother like a loyal puppy. She used to perform in the streets, struggling to make ends meet, until she injured herself. One day she handed him a gold coin she had earned and told him to buy something nice. The little boy ran to the market, eager to get his mom a special meal. But he foolishly held onto the coin too visibly and bumped into a large man. The man demanded the coin. Xuan clutched it to his chest, but the man beat him until he dropped it. Alone and bruised, Xuan sobbed against a wall. No one came to help. Then he heard a voice. Looking up, he saw a boy 2 years older, with elegant clothes and deep blue eyes. The boy handed him a sack of coins and disappeared before Xuan could thank him. That boy became the first person Xuan ever wanted to repay. Years later, that same boy, now called Shen Wei, was gone. He'd been dead for 2 years, leaving the empire and Xuan cold and lifeless. Though the empire flourished, the emperor shut himself away, only emerging for essential matters. Rumors spread of a lost lover. Xuan spent his days in grief, painting images of Shen Wei, his blue eyes and dark hair staring off in quiet elegance. When he wasn't painting, he devoured books on resurrection, hoping for any way to bring Shen Wei back. Most books held nothing but theories and lies. Frustrated, he tossed one aside, only for a jeweled book to fall from a shelf. It was ancient and extravagant, with no title. Xuan decided to name it Umbra. Inside, Umbra hinted at forbidden magic. To bring back the dead, one would have to summon the lord of the underworld, Mordek. Mordek's soul had been scattered by the gods, but fragments had been sealed into this book by a powerful immortal. It had taken 5 years for Shen Wei's soul to reform, so Xuan waited, desperate but patient. At last, the time had come. The emperor entered the quiet room, a determined glint in his eye. He placed the book by Shen Wei's glass coffin and whispered, "We'll meet again soon." It was a promise, one that he vowed he would make real. Song Xuan placed the book down and looked at the corpse of Shen Wei. 5 years had passed, but his beauty remained unchanged. Song Xuan had cleaned and dressed him after his death, unable to bear seeing Shen Wei in blood. He had wept, regretting his cruelty, realizing too late how deeply he loved him. Shen Wei had hated him, and Song Xuan mourned his mistakes. "I was blind. I love you," he whispered, tears unshed. He kissed Shen Wei's lips softly. "I'll bring you back, even if I die." The room filled with incense as the ritual began. Song Xuan placed Shen Wei in the glass coffin and took out Umbra, the jeweled book. As the sun set, the room was bathed in its light, and Umbra shone brightly. The light dimmed and a voice echoed, "Who dares disturb me?" "I do," Song Xuan replied calmly. "A mortal? How did you acquire a piece of my soul?" the voice asked. Song Xuan smirked. "How did someone like you lose to the heavens?" The figure of Mordek appeared, tall and intimidating. "What do you want?" he growled. "Bring someone back from the dead," Song Xuan said. Mordek chuckled darkly. "There's a price for resurrection," I'll pay any price, Song Xuan answered, determined. Mordek smirked. You'll die for them, won't you? I will, Song Xuan said firmly. Find their soul, Mordek commanded, snapping his fingers. The surroundings changed to a hill overlooking a city and an obsidian palace. Bring them to me, Mordek said, disappearing. Crazy bastard, Song Xuan muttered, ready to begin his search for Shen Wei's soul. The underworld streets illuminated Song Xuan's path as he searched desperately for Shen Wei. Where are you? He whispered, panic rising. Was he too late to apologize to the one he loved? Tears filled his eyes, but he refused to give up. He could feel Shen Wei was close. In the distance, he saw a figure standing by a dock, long hair blowing in the wind. His heart raced. Shen Wei was everything he longed for. He ran, tears streaming down, stumbling toward him. Before him stood a man with dark hair and mesmerizing blue eyes. His pale skin, long white robes, and ethereal presence took Song Xuan's breath away. Are you all right? The man asked softly. Song Xuan grabbed the man's hand, overcome with emotion. I'm sorry, he sobbed, pressing his forehead against his hand. Confused, the man looked around. Who are you? He asked, pulling back slightly, but Song Xuan wouldn't let go. Seeing his tears, he sighed, patted his shoulder, and said, Don't carry guilt. It only harms you. Song Xuan, still clinging to him, nuzzled his neck, but the man scowled. Don't touch me. Song Xuan's heart broke. Memories of the days when Shen Wei had rejected him flooding back. He cried, I'm sorry. Overwhelmed with guilt, the man sighed, glancing at the ship waiting for him. He allowed Song Xuan to hold him for a moment, deciding that reincarnation could wait. Song Xuan pulled out Umbra, its glowing pages shimmering in the air. In his hurry, he ripped some of them. The man tried to pick them up, scolding him for mishandling the book. When Song Xuan found the page he needed, he tossed Umbra aside, causing dark smoke to rise from it. A voice echoed, You're testing my patience. Mordek, the lord of the underworld, appeared. He glared at Song Xuan. Be careful with what's mine, he growled, inspecting the ruined book. With a wave, Mordek restored Umbra to its original state, and the air filled with dark fog. He spoke, his voice powerful. From now on your lives are bound. If one falls, the other follows. This cannot be undone. Song Xuan gripped Shen Wei tighter, but suddenly felt as though he was holding air. Panic surged as he felt himself falling. In a glass coffin, Shen Wei lay peacefully, his chest rising and falling. He was alive. How are you feeling, Your Majesty? The doctor asked, dabbing Song Xuan's forehead with a damp cloth. Song Xuan jolted up, only to collapse back with a sharp pain in his chest. Where is he? He rasped. Asleep, the doctor replied, setting medicine by the bedside. Take these every 5 hours. Song Xuan's tense expression softened. Shen Wei was alive. Ignoring the pain, he struggled to sit up. Disheveled and bandaged, he glanced around, searching for a mirror. He wanted to look his best for Shen Wei. Your Highness, a servant exclaimed, rushing over. He tried to push Xuan back down, but the Emperor waved him off, downing the bitter medicine. When will I recover? He asked the doctor. 3 weeks minimum, maybe 2 months. Frustration flickered in Song Xuan's eyes. Sending them away, he forced himself out of bed. His wound reopened, blood staining the bandages as he staggered to the door. The door swung open, and there stood Shen Wei, his dark blue eyes blazing, black hair cascading over his shoulders, dressed in white. Shen! Song Xuan froze, his heart leaping. What have you done, Song Xuan? Shen Wei roared, grabbing him by the collar. Song Xuan clung to him despite the pain, his face lit with a weak smile. You're here, he murmured, trying to touch Shen Wei's cheek. Shen Wei pushed him away, his grip tightening. You idiot! Are you planning to torment me forever? Song Xuan collapsed back onto the bed, Shen Wei towering over him. Blood soaked through his bandages, but all Xuan could say was, I'm sorry. I won't hurt you again. Shen Wei's glare faltered, but his voice remained cold. You're bleeding? He hesitated, then called for a servant to bring new bandages. Once alone, Shen Wei began tending to him, though his expression was still unreadable. Song Xuan savored every moment of his touch. How did you bring me back? Shen Wei asked bluntly. I did a ritual, Song Xuan admitted, recalling Mordek's warning. You'll share the same lifeline. If one dies, so will the other. Late one night, Shen Wei decided to escape. Climbing down from his balcony, he navigated the palace grounds. Reaching the gate, he froze. He turned to see Song Xuan blocking his path. Caught, Shen Wei tried to pull away, but Xuan grabbed him, pulling him into the shadows. Xuan leaned in and kissed him, holding him close. Shen Wei pushed him away and slapped him. Have you lost your mind? Where are you going? Xuan asked. I'm leaving, Shen Wei said firmly. Xuan's jaw tightened, but he relented. Fine, this time I'll let you go, but I'll find you, and when I do, I won't let you go. Shen Wei traveled across the empire for the first time in 5 years. The streets were cleaner, and prosperity was evident under Song Xuan's rule. However, he found himself embroiled in a small market scuffle, stepping in to help a boy harassed by a merchant. He handed over some coins to save the boy, dismissing the incident until a young man with green eyes and long dark hair approached. Master Wei, is that you? I thought I'll never see you again. The man whispered before embracing him. Who are you? Shen Wei asked, startled. It's me, Shen Shu. The boy Shen Wei once knew had grown into a capable soldier, now a general. As they strolled through the market, Shen Shu's admiration evident. Finally, he murmured, Actually, I want to be with you. Shen Wei smiled gently. All right, I'll stay with you. Shen Shu felt his heart drop a little. It wasn't quite what he'd meant. But for now, being beside Shen Wei was enough. Soon, Shen Shu took Wei to his own home and spent their time lively. But Shen Shu never forget his mission to end the life of the emperor who separated him from Shen Wei. This is because, back then, when he was forcefully sent to soldier camp, he felt like he lost the most important thing in life, and not only that, the rumors spread how the emperor killed a hidden concubine and lost their mind for that. Hearing the rumor, Zhu knew it was Shen Wei. He couldn't understand it at that time, but eventually he understood that the emperor kept Shen Wei like a canary, and that canary died from all the torment, and he lost the one he wanted to protect. So, he was determined to take his revenge. Now, he found his important one alive and healthy, but still, he wanted to take revenge for every pain the emperor caused. Meanwhile, Song Xuan transformed the palace. He replaced the dungeons where he kept Shen Wei imprisoned with ornate chambers and remodeled the library. Yet Shen Wei's absence gnawed at him. The emperor brooded on his balcony, haunted by memories of Shen Wei and tormented by jealousy of the known fact that Shen Wei is spending his time with another man. One night, a dark mist appeared before him. Mordek emerged, lounging casually. What do you want? Xuan demanded. Is that any way to greet an immortal? Mordek replied. Does someone like you deserve any respect? Xuan scoffed. Mordek smiled coldly, lounging on the railing without care. After all, he was immortal. You haven't told him that your life and his life bound together, have you? Mordek stared at Song Xuan, silently judging him. The emperor narrowed his eyes. I haven't. Mordek grabbed an apple, biting into it. I see. Impatient, Song Xuan crossed his arms. What do you want? Someone's tampering with your fate, trying to kill you. The fate I've given might change. This will throw the human realm into chaos. You need to find them before they succeed, Mordek said, his tone nonchalant. Their determination is powerful, but the real issue is this person interfering with fate. If they succeed, you'll die, taking Shen Wei with you. Don't kill them. Bring them to me and I'll handle it. If you do, I'll give you more years of life. Suspicious, Xuan pressed for answers. All right, but you'll help me when I ask, Xuan said. Mordek sighed and nodded. Fine. What's his name? Xuan asked. Shen Shu, Mordek replied. The name sounded familiar, but Song Xuan couldn't place it. He searched through reports on Shen Wei's whereabouts until he found what he was looking for. Shen Shu. Wasn't that the person who living with Shen Wei? Song Xuan and Mordek. They both started their travel to find Shen Wei and Shen Shu. Song Xuan and Mordek split up in the middle of journey. Days later, Xuan stumbled upon Shen Wei at a stream, bathing in his robes. Their eyes met, both stunned. Xuan, weak and feverish from his long journey and from the peace he felt at his heart at the sight of his Wei, collapsed into the water half unconsciously. Realizing the emperor might drown, Shen Wei rushed to help him, dragging him ashore. "How do you feel?" Shen Wei asked. "Like I can't move," Xuan replied, though he was clearly stalling. "Idiot," Shen Wei muttered, helping him back to the home where he lived with Shen Shu. Despite his annoyance, he cared for the emperor, forcing him to eat and rest. Today, Shen Shu wasn't at home and told him that he'll be leaving for a personal matter. So, Xuan and Wei was alone at home. As Xuan slept, Shen Wei pondered their complicated relationship. Song Xuan had caused so much pain, yet he had also changed, rebuilding what he'd destroyed. The man lying beside him was no longer the cruel emperor he once knew. Xuan's mix of good and bad made him impossible to understand. At the palace, Shen Shu had come to spy on the palace, preparing to end the life of Song Xuan for the pain he caused his Shen Wei and him. As he stepped into the palace hall, suddenly a voice stopped him. "Hey," said a tall, pale man with crimson eyes and a sly smile. "Who are you?" Shen Shu demanded, drawing his sword. "You don't remember?" Mordek said, stepping closer. With a talisman, he disarmed Shen Shu. "You know me," Mordek continued, his voice soft but intense. "How could you forget the one you betrayed?" Shen Shu shook his head as unfamiliar memories of being a great general and meeting a red-eyed boy flashed through his mind. These weren't memories he recognized as his own. In those fragments, he saw himself finding a lost boy and protecting him. He promised to return after leaving for war, but never did. The images spun in his mind, leaving him dizzy and weak, as if he were reliving them. "You?" he gasped, struggling to stay upright. "Me?" Mordek smiled, tilting his head. "What about me?" "Stop putting things in my head," Shen Shu shouted. As soon as the torment ended, Shen Shu collapsed. Mordek caught him effortlessly, carrying him to a nearby room. He laid him on the bed, securing him and checking his breathing. "I finally found you," Mordek whispered, his voice filled with emotion. He pressed his forehead against Shen Shu's gently. Then, with determination, he carried the unconscious man to his underworld palace, vowing never to let him go again. Back at the home, the Emperor Song Xuan woke up and saw Shen Wei beside him. He hugged him tightly, saying, "I'm sorry." He couldn't help it. "I just fall in love with you more each day," he confessed, his heart racing. "Wei, I love you so much." Shen Wei, always awkward with feelings, pulled back slightly. He struggled with what to say, unsure how to respond. Song Xuan watched him, waiting, despite knowing Shen Wei's feelings. "You already know my answer," Shen Wei replied quietly. Song Xuan looked desperate, his need for Shen Wei overwhelming. "I know you don't like me, but I can't live without you." Shen Wei realized just how deeply attached Song Xuan was. "If you hate me, then kill me," Xuan said, guiding Shen Wei's hand to his heart. "My life is yours. If you don't want it, take it." Shen Wei pressed his palm to Song Xuan's chest, feeling his heartbeat. After a long pause, he spoke gently. "I don't hate you," a softness in his voice he'd never used with Song Xuan before. "But I don't love you either. Don't give your life to others," Shen Wei continued, his gaze steady. "Live for yourself. Life is too complex to be so final. Seasons change, and life goes on." These words, coming from someone who had once known despair, reached Song Xuan deeply. In this fragile world, they found themselves standing together, two lives intertwined. "All right," Song Xuan murmured softly, and Shen Wei gently embraced him.